Good morning, everyone. My name is Soumya, and I'm the Program Coordinator at AVIXA. First of all, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you here today for taking time to attend this webinar. Infocom India Go Virtual is the community platform for AV and IT channel professionals and vertical market end users from across all industries. It provides information on pro audiovisual technologies and market trends and acts as a medium for delivering webinars and facilitating networking. Please spare some time after this webinar to explore the Go Virtual platform. The topic for today's panel discussion is emerging trends, what the industry is going to look like after 2020. We have with us Mr. T.S. Gopalakrishnan, who will be moderating the panel. The panelists are Mr. Abdul Waheed, Managing Director from EYTE Technologies Private Limited, Mr. Bharath Kumar, Managing Director, Kramer Electronics India Private Limited, Mr. Nitin Joshi, Asia Pacific IT Audiovisual and Mobility from 3ds.com, and Mr. Sachin Prabhudesai, Vice President of Projects from Actis Technologies Private Limited. During the panel discussion, you may type your questions to the panelists in the Q&A window tab. Our moderator will field the top questions to our panelists. Now, without further ado, I request Mr. T.S. Gopalakrishnan to begin the discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are, getting back together after a little over a year since we met last in the Infocom India 2019 show at the Bombay Exhibition Center. The show we had been looking forward to attending year on year every year. Only difference, I am at my home in Delhi, and so are most of you visiting virtually from the confines of your home or office or maybe home office spaces. Each one of us from different cities occupying this unifying virtual stage. Quite normal, isn't it? It is now very normal to be at our own home or office spaces. And it's something that we do have taking forward as a regular normal way of life these days. So what the future beholds? Do we have a magic video wall that gives us to look into, say, next few months or a year or maybe even couple of years down the road? We may not, but we do have our distinguished industry panelists representing the varied disciplines of AV industry, giving us their perspective for us to make our own views of this magic wall and make use of this wonderful technology platform the way we do so for our variety of clients and industries world over. Welcome to Infocom Go Virtual 2019 and to the first session this morning on the emerging trends, what our industry is going to look after 2020. Let me begin with the questions to the panelists. The first question to Nitin. From the perspective of an enterprise end user, what kind of trends do you see in terms of office spaces opening up due to unlocking or even partial unlocking? Are these temporary? And how long do we see these for? Nitin.
Thank you, Gopal. Good morning. And yeah, this is very wide question in my view. And first of all, with this pandemic, it is importance of technology to keep the world connected. So this is with the technology has already demonstrated its potential in the present pandemic. That's what I want to say in the first statement. And in the temporary, for we can say for a short term and for a long term, there will be a different views on the AV infra. For a short term, there might be some people will say that AV requirement will be reduced or there will be no requirement and something like that. But in my view, I'm very optimistic in the for this AV as a world. And for a short term, there might be some impact for few months. But in the long run, we have to have the AV in the place, and of course, we need to modify some infra. And for a long run, we need to redesign the legacy AV infra. But with this thing, it means that we have a bigger opportunity to build our new infra. We need to adopt the new way of working. We need to adopt the new normal, we can say. And yes, in a longer run, we need to work on various aspects and build the new part to deliver to the business and work in a new way. Yeah.
Thank you, Nitin. So you did mention a shift in design approach. So let me put the next question to our consultant here, Abdul. What kind of changes that have been being asked for by your clients? Because from the perspective of different segments of clients, not just related to enterprise, but maybe a wide variety of clients like education or hospitality. So is there any shift in the design approach now that these are being required in terms of short term and maybe also in terms of long term? So what's your view on these?
Thank you, Gopal. As Nitin was mentioning, that there are changes in requirements. So actually, we have been working with different enterprises. We have been working in education segment, government segment, and we have been working with the corporate offices, the hospitality segment. So what we have seen is like, this pandemic was totally new to all of us, and people were very worried and very shocked, in shock state at the initial phase of this pandemic. But slowly, people started learning everything. Whatever happens, we believe is for a change. So the change that we have observed is it has accelerated the embracing of technology. Otherwise it was very difficult to gear up the technology, especially in the country like India, where there is the population issue. There are different, very unique issues that our country has, but pushing technology in this kind of socio-dynamic environment was little challenging. What we have seen is this pandemic has pushed the technology. People have embraced it, right from education, schools, otherwise it was so difficult for education segment to explain them the importance of how many things they can do online. They can increase their productivity and efficiency. And so the same thing applies to other segments as well. So what we have seen is initially it was a shock state, but then later on people slowly started embracing it. I will just give you one figure wherein I have seen the Microsoft Teams user. It was in the month of March, it was 15 million users, whereas in the month of April, the number goes as high as 75 million users in one single month. So that is kind of people have accepted the technology. Technology slowly started accelerating. As an impulsive reaction, what we have seen, people started asking about social distances, norms, health monitoring, and those kind of requirement, which was little different than earlier requirements. Earlier, people, even if we design a boardroom for a corporate office, they were why to go for an automation? Yeah, we can switch on the TV separately, we can switch on the amplifier separately. But now that can have kind of automation solution became must have. People started talking about voice as a user interface. People started about social distancing norm. They don't want to touch the thumb scanner. They don't want to shake hand. They don't want to touch the screens, the user interface. So those kind of requirements started coming up. And then IoT was there in the picture. So we were getting a lot of demands, the occupancy sensors, the counters, you cannot, every boardroom, meeting rooms were working half the capacity. So those kind of slight shift we started seeing. And the third important thing, slowly in the end of the this period where we are now in the unlocking period, what we have seen is people, some part of the impulsive reaction, now some part of solution was temporary and some will become permanent. Work from home became very aggressive initial days, but then slowly now it is becoming a hybrid mode. People are coming to offices for meetings, for collaborative sessions. So now office designs, what client are asking us is like open office designs, where like, lesser of meeting rooms, even in the boardroom, because they are, because of the social distancing norm, where one person earlier used to have 80 square feet when we are designing it. Now they are going for 120 square feet. So larger office concept has come in place. So those things are like, a slight shift we have seen. One more major shift we have seen is like, earlier people used to have one centralized office. They used to have everything in one bigger office, like all divisions have to operate from one building. Now they are thinking, because we have seen in the lockdown, some areas were in green zone, some areas were in orange, some were in red. So now if your office unfortunately lies in the red zone, you will have to completely shut down the office. So we are seeing expansion of offices into small offices, maybe in B cities and C cities. So those are also getting some technology exposure. So these are some of the views I have put in my words to explain how we have seen the entire situation.
Thank you, Abdul. So that was a wide variety of issues that were pointed out by you. So before we start looking back into these, let me put a quick question to our Sachin here. So again, from your perspective as a system integrator, under your current portfolio, which sector or sectors do you think have taken a boom in terms of expansion during this period of COVID and now during the current unlocking phase? And do you think that this will change in near future for us to see?
Hi Gopal, hi everyone. I want, before I answer that question, I want all of us to look back a bit. If we look at, personally, I have seen three slowdowns, induced by various reasons. One in after the 9/11 crisis, one in 2009 after the 2008 collapse, and one right now. So, we are going through the third one, which, I have gone through in my working career. So if you look at the common aspect of all three, while we were coming out of all of these, slowdowns, the biggest aspect was the need to connect, be it 2001, 2009, or to 2020 today. The need to connect, need to collaborate. Of course, the levels have changed. Like in, early 2000, people were investing in video MCUs and hard MCUs and all. So that has now changed. And, after 2 decades, it has come to soft VC platforms, like Abdul mentioned about people working from home. So, soft VC is very, very popular today. Also, one biggest aspect we should look at is, which we discussed earlier also, something like this by AVIXA or Infocom doing this virtually. That itself is a, new application. No one thought about this. So if we look at all of this, this is induced by the need. And the need is to collaborate, to communicate, to connect. So I feel, be it a corporate setup, education, of course, I mean, obviously there are some industries which are badly hit. But if you look at the boom, like to answer your question on what has looked better from April, I think, all of these collapse spaces. So size is immaterial. I mean, I would kind of, agree with Abdul in terms of setting up the room sizes or the workspace. Gone are the days where people would want huge lavish boardrooms, because more than the glam quotient, I think people are looking at functionality today, and more people should be within the organization should be allowed to connect. So the easiest way is like, if you really have that 120 square foot of space, if I was the boss, I would look at, giving video to everyone. So which means in that 120 square feet space, you can connect your own collab setup. It may not be a group communication, but you are kind of enabling users to use audio and video very aggressively. So collab spaces, yes, there are typical applications upcoming. I have seen a big boom, especially by the doctors. Doctors have started using, we spoke about telemedicine projects earlier, in the last 5 years. But today, a basic general practitioner also would, want to connect on video. you know, just to be safe. And people have found ways. So, I have been connecting with my doctors, so I GPay them, and they are available for 15, 20, 30-minute consultation. So that is something which I never thought last year. When we were building our numbers and targets, we never thought we'll go and talk to doctors, but that seems to be a market. And like someone mentioned, the faster we adapt and manage this change, I think there lies the key of getting out of this pandemic. So I still feel this is temporary. I mean, 3 months, 6 months, and I feel the spaces we build have to be future ready. So yes, the new norms temporary could be work from home or work from a smaller room, smaller groups. But at the same time, I have people asking for bigger rooms, because they said, okay, we were building a 10-seater room. We still want a 10-seater room. We'll make the room bigger. So that 120 square feet space, 6 feet on either side, all of that has been looked at, viewing angles, site study and all. But I think I'm coming back to that same thing, need to connect, need to collaborate. That is very important. That will never die. We may do it on video, we may do it in person. I think we in India love to connect people one-on-one in person. So I see that happening soon. But till that time, I think we'll have to look at the new normal. And to answer your question on the sector, I think IT or people who are into, see, there are some who would stay away from setting up workspaces in the homes. Banks, they're worried about exposed security, network security, so they would still look at having their people coming into workspaces, maybe 30-40% as per the capacity allowed. But others, like software developers, people who are into services business, like law firms, they would be definitely happy to connect on video. But someone like the AV people, we may get projects and we may have to install it physically. So okay, I mean, to an extent, what Abdul mentioned about MS Teams or equivalents, it is easy to deploy without physically being there. So yes, I see a boom of that, and it is to everyone. It could be for education, again, irrespective of the age. It could be for kids, it could be for colleges, it could be for management institutes, IITs. All of them would eventually want to connect, because the knowledge transfer has to happen, the communication has to happen, the collaboration cannot stop. So I believe these are the sectors which would continue to invest. And like, I think people have started thinking out of the box. So have video for more and more people. Communication cannot stop. That's the final thing I would want to say.
Absolutely. Needing to get connected, being able to collaborate, and those things will never ever stop for humans. Okay, taking a cue from your answer, you did mention that planning, that you had whatever had been planned for doing it in a certain way. Of course, there were some changes that have to be done for that. So let me put it to Bharath from a perspective of manufacturer. Has there been a specific pattern to demands of type of products, especially any of those considered as temporary for the current period, being or soaring over normally in demand products that you had planned for this time of the year or for this period?
I think, Gopal, I mean, coming from it, right, work from home, products that cater to the work from home, e-learning, remote collaboration, as Sachin mentioned, right, remote monitoring, telemedicine, zero touch automation, right, these are the products, right, that have been in demand specifically during this, and I think, right, it's going to go continue. And almost all manufacturers have come up with products, right, that cater to these applications.
Gopal, you are mute.
On the mic, yeah. So the one other point that Sachin was mentioning in terms of demand picking up from smaller cities, and if I remember, you were probably one of the first to start having establishments at all the smaller cities and smaller places and having representatives as a manufacturer. So do you think that that has benefited the industry because of that? And how do you perceive this to be followed in the future to come?
Absolutely, Gopal. Because when we built up the Kramer's business model in India, our business we always looked at, right. It's going to percolate, right. The benefits of the metros are going to percolate to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And we were one of the first early movers, right, back in 2010, right, to have remote manpower or offices, right, in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. One of the advantages we have had during this course, right, pandemic course, is this, right, now our operations were never ceased. All right, they were operational because, right, most of the small cities, right, tier 2, tier 3 cities were immune to the lockdowns, right, and the requirements were flowing on, right. As now the bigger companies are trying to move to the tier 2, tier 3 cities, right, being established there almost gives us an advantage to, right, cater to their needs and requirements.
So yeah, that's one trend that I can clearly look at. And back to Nitin, you are from Pune. We used to think that as a tier 2 city when I was there many years ago. And as much as I can see, a lot of developments have been taking place over the years. What's your perspective of looking at customers or end users expanding on their spaces, especially with what even Abdul mentioned about social distancing, meaning that you need larger spaces for probably the same amount of people. And by virtue of availability of space, people offices are restricting a number of people to visit them. So in case they want the full strength, and moreover, when they need to add strength, considering the future businesses, they need more spaces. So what is your perspective on adding on spaces and how that's going to impact the future businesses of AV and what we do?
Um, so considering the requirement versus the spaces, and now the people are going to work in hybrid mode. As Abdul mentioned before, it will be a hybrid for a long time in my view. And when we are saying hybrid, we cannot get rid of the on-prem or the in-premise or from the office. People has to work. There are different perspectives, because as Sachin mentioned, from the banking perspective, they don't allow people to work from home. For IT, they do. Now, coming on the technology front, there are 26 plus collab tools available in the market. Those are basically doing the helping to communicate with the people. Now, with this thing, we have to think about the AV infra for these many collab tools. We need to think from the support perspective. We need to integration perspective. We need to think a lot on the AV side. With it means that there will be a office, but only thing will be we need to go for the furthermore automation in terms of lighting, in terms of independent operation of the system. Once we enter in the room, probably we need to use our badge or the RFID to enter in the room. It will detect that who enter in the room. System should detect that, oh, this person is a validated who has booked this room, so that meeting should start automatically. If there is any presentation to show with the wireless technologies, we should be able to present it. That will be the requirement in my view from the corporate perspective. Now, as far as the spaces are concerned, yes, we need to maintain some social distancing because of this pandemic situation, but over the period of time, it will be reduced, and it will not be something like we need to keep a distance of say 6 feet and something like that. That 120 square feet might be reduced in the future, but as of now, for 2-3 years, of course, there will be we need to maintain some more space per user perspective. And when we are saying some people will work from home, in that case, we need to build some extra infra, AV infra, that will help to collaborate with the people. And when we are working remotely, that time the key component in my view is we should have a great AV setup at our end. So apart from the corporate offices setup, I think there is a potential to deploy, design some AV infra at the home level as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have been talking about technology and users of technology in terms of integration of support, remote monitoring. Bharath, let me put this to you. So as a manufacturer, do you think there have been a lot of products that we have been seeing off and on for a lot of time. So how do you think from manufacturer's perspective that you are going to be ready for this assault of requirement from the end users that's going to be coming up in the near future or future to come? How prepared you are, and what's your think on this?
Right. I would like to comment, at least from a Kramer perspective. Right, we have always had a mix of IP-based products, right? To the conventional products with a collaborative platform products as well. So all these are in line with the latest technology trends, right? And as Kramer, right? That believes in staying in tune with the latest trends. Okay, being an AV signal management manufacturer, right? I think it's almost the case with most of the manufacturers around. Right? I think the soft codecs was always available. That touchless automation, right? Was always available. It's just that it's being put into a rapid use now, right? Acceptability has increased, but it's always been there. Okay, so if I may say so, that products were available, technologies were available. It's just about end users adapting to those products and technologies that we are seeing now.
Okay. Coming to you, Sachin, in terms of talking about touchless controls and touchless solutions, we did have a lot of voice controlled applications that we have been seeing at home front, but also probably taking into its course into the professional AV market. And as much as I could see a lot of gesture controls taking place, at least in the live event space, how you as a system integrator would want to use these or add these to your portfolios to enable performance of these spaces, even as Nitin said that things would have to have automatically when people start coming into spaces. So from an integrator's perspective, how do you look at this? How prepared you are, and how confident you are that you will be in a position to deliver these solutions in the best possible way for the clients?
Sure. To answer your question, we had set up a gesture-based control for someone in Bangalore, and that was as old as 10 years back. Of course, that was more of a setup made for an experience center. So there was that wow factor at that point. But today it has become a need. So, if you like Nitin mentioned about rooms to be ready, you just walk in and, you should. Earlier we used to look at controls and touch panels and iPads and all. But today people want to make it more simpler. Or rather, it actually becomes complex in AV terms, but from the user's point of view. And, eventually we build rooms for the users. So I have always believed that, when you set up a room, that should be easy for the user to use. Programmers and AV guys always make it really complex, but I think the key is the simplicity. So I feel, and yes, that maybe 20 years back that was like the imagination, but today it's reality. So we have created setups and we are ready. We have also, yes, I agree. I mean, the deployments on voice-based controls are more on home setups at this point. But if you look at corporate setups also, today there's a requirement of, touch-based or, voice-based or occupancy-based controls. So it could be as simple as, walking into the room and, have the lights on at a certain level. And you can actually have this integrated with voice too. So, have 3 or 4 set of commands, and the applications are not many. So if you walk into the room, it could be for a presentation, it could be for a collaboration, it could be for, some kind of video conferencing along with data sharing. So all of these can be can be set up on voice-based commands. Of course, we need to educate the users also, because, even if you buy a new phone, you take at least about 1 hour to get used to that. It could have new menus. If you're changing from iOS to a different system altogether, that 1 hour could be 2 hours or 3 hours. So, the faster we adapt to that, and the users are, I think, the most important aspect here, because they are using it day in and day out. So they have to be comfortable. And which also means that, we have to involve them right from the seeding phase or the designing phase. Because eventually, we design systems on the basis of inputs or the pain points we receive from them. So if they are tuned, and if they are educated in a way where they could use this efficiently, because otherwise, the job is not well done. I have found in my career that people don't get to use or explore the full potential of the AV system, and typically they'll end up blaming the integrator or the manufacturer. So what is more important is get them involved right from the designing phase, and have pooling of ideas from the actual users. So okay, this is the need, and we are building this for you. So because that voice based, it could be Alexa. I don't want to name products here, but whatever words, it has, like, I have been taught computer is perfect, and then my professor used to tell me computer is a perfect idiot. So the thing is, it will precisely do what you ask it to do, and that's why it is obviously going to work as set of commands in the backend. So I think if more and more people are involved in this, I think that's a great solution. And to answer your second question, yes, we are ready in terms of offering designs, deploying them successfully. That is the key, because okay, I can create a BOQ and sell it, but the real success is when it is used successfully by the users. So yes, we are ready. And I see that right now maybe only 5 or 10% of the requirements which are coming up would have these setups, but eventually it will grow.
Good. Talking about user needs analysis and design phase. So now this puts back to Abdul. Being a consultant, you always are one of the key factors trying to put this into perspective for the end user, for them to understand what technology can do and what technology cannot do. So in terms of your current understanding and deployment of these solutions, especially gesture control and touchless controls, can you put some perspective into it, to how comfortable end users in the wide varied segments, not necessarily enterprise segment, but also from the other end users like classrooms or schools or educational institutions, how they will be adaptable to such technological trends that we would look at or consider?
Yeah, actually, what Sachin was mentioning just now, whatever interface we design, like for boardroom, if we are using gesture control, or it has to be user friendly. It should be easy to use. Yeah, of course, we can deploy very high end technology. We can integrate it very well. But unless and until the user experience, like the interface that we are giving, that also, like sometimes the entire user experience defines uh, how best the solution is given. So user interface, what I feel is, like in spite of, like, all the manufacturers are giving very best solution, very good products, but the next battle from the customer side is going to be on user experience. That is what I feel. Like you may have two car booking system apps with you, but one gives you very proper feedback. It gives you exact location where you are. It gives you tracking of the driver. It gives you the mileage you use. So, like in spite of having, the other guy may have better services, but your user experience always defines, like whom to prefer. That is one way of looking at it. Second is, like earlier days, the automation was like people were little hesitant in adopting it. Like they used to say, like, we don't want any automation in the room, it is slight complex. Again, it comes to user experience. But now, slowly going one step ahead, we are looking at like intelligent solutions to be given. Like, the devices are AI based nowadays. Like, it can read your temperature, it can read your facial expressions, it can read your gestures. So all devices are slowly becoming AI based. The equipments are intelligent. So we need, these are the technological trends that we are looking at. Recently, on user experience, we were designing a bank recently. They had best of infra in their office. They had best of video conferencing devices, the latest displays, the latest ceiling microphones, everything they had. But like they called us and told us we are missing something, and that missing element was user experience. They were using it on different platform, like people are working from home, they are using adding their home environment noise and disturbances to the call. So everything was in the end landed, like we realized they had everything, they were ready to spend, but the last point that they are not able to identify was user experience. They were not getting seamless uniform user experience. That is what they were looking at. Third thing, important thing that we are looking right now is little away from the AV, but not far away, is the bandwidth, the network speed. So which is 5G is coming still to get into that. So that is going to be a major criteria. People, I was looking at one of the workshop I was attending, wherein human behavior was being studied, and what they realized is this speed, internet speed, has made people impatient. You cannot wait for 5 seconds for the screen to come live. So that is kind of expectation are coming from the users. So that is one more battle that the technology guys will have to see. So these are the few things that we have seen in the demand from customer in terms of requirement. Of course, the uh, gesture control, voice enabled devices, healthcare is becoming very important nowadays. It is becoming part of tender as well, to monitor the health and safety of the users as well as of the contractors and the people working at site. So that is a continuous process and is becoming part of tender. So these are the few changes that we have seen in from design perspective.
Yes. So when we talk about health and safety, and we talk about intelligent devices, and we talk about remote monitoring, so let me put this to Nitin. Uh, Considering these factors, do you still want people to be support people for AV support people to be present in the spaces, or how do you see that more and more remote monitoring applications, or you will allow people to remote monitor and remote control devices, especially from third-party service providers and not necessarily from your own company employees? How do you see that as an end user, as an enterprise end user, uh, and also in terms of availability of solutions?
Yeah. So I will put this way. Nowadays, with the current situation, people are moving from the technologist to a technology buyer. So what does it mean that as a technologist, if I'm going to say Apple Store and buying some iPhone, that time I check the technical spec of this device. Versus if a non-technical, considering that my wife is walking into the same showroom, see her view will be a totally different. These many applications should work properly. So she is a technology buyer. She will check that this is the device. Is it fulfilling my requirement? Then yes, she will buy it. Versus I will go through some more technical details. How is the performance, memory, storage, what all things are available with the device. Now, with this thing, when we are saying about the experience, that time, as Abdul mentioned, we need to use AI, we need to use machine learning in the systems, and with these many things, we need to do the automation and move further.
You said it very nicely. You put it very nicely. Technologist buyer and a technology buyer. That's something that I'm going to immediately take away. I've noted that down.
And the way he mentioned, the customer is the wife. So if that is done, half of your job is done.
Yes. So that's a very, very interesting point that has been put forward. Means I am going to have a small presentation on user experience for design as in the same in Infocom Go Virtual on the 20th. And I have taken up some of these points in that as well. But it's good to know to have and connect people amongst various disciplines on this. So let me just take forward some public questions now that I can see that have been raised from people. And probably the first one goes to Bharath. How is your organization going to provide ready to deploy AV kits? So now they have mentioned ready to deploy AV kits, taking care of small office, home office, SOHO requirements, basically equipment that allows users to collaborate effectively to provide basic communication requirements, such as good audio setup and echo cancellation or video compression for that matter.
Gopal, I mean, we already have, at Kramer, I mean, let me again say this, right? We already have kits which caters to the small huddle spaces or a mid-sized meeting rooms or work from home solutions, all right, which is plug and play. And I guess, right, many other OEMs, right, have much advanced, if not as same as us, right, in terms of both the technology and the package solutions.
Thank you, Bharath. Let me take the next question, which states, with office spaces being reduced, now that's exactly contradicting what we were discussing. Anyway, the requirement for AV solution, especially collaboration tool, will decrease. What does the panel have to share on this? Who would want to answer this? Abdul, yes, surely.
Hi. Actually, I think the questioner is asking, like, with work from home, will the office's operations will reduce? I'm not sure if that is the question. As like, Nitin has also mentioned, like the operation system is becoming more of a hybrid. People are working from home from their day-to-day work perspective. But like offices, whatever we have designed during this recent lockdown, what we have seen is offices are more designed for collaborative kind of spaces. Collaborative spaces are coming, interactive sessions are to be held in the offices. People are doing their regular job from work from home, but when they're coming to office is designed for their collaborative sessions. So more open offices designing are being done, more office open areas are being designed, whatever we have seen in recent past. So collaboration is one of the prime deciding factor of office design. And in that, like, we have to have more collaborative tools. Cross platforms is one of the requirement, like, people are using different application, different tools. So even manufacturers are coming up with their equipments, which are able to cross talk and cross platforms are being designed. So that is what I have seen. So office work from home, from work from home point of view, offices are more collaborative. Now, like, when offices are more on collaboration and more open office designing are taking place, lesser of the meeting rooms. So that is like also like, sound and acoustic is becoming important. Sound masking we have seen, like, in recent 3-4 projects, like, sound masking requirements, which otherwise was very rare in our designs, is also, like, becoming a common designing factor now. So these are the few slight changes what I have observed. Other panelists can add to these points.
Yes, Sachin, I would say because you are also a system integrator, so you also have office to run, and your office to run would be the site where you have to actually do the physical work. So a lot of times this is also something that we have to look at, and a lot of us need to look at the trends as to how do we have our own people work at offices, especially the sites. So any thoughts on this?
Yes, so right from the time we started working again, so after a gap of maybe 2 months, it could be beginning of June or July. Yes, we had problems. So we had some of our engineers down with COVID also. So these challenges were also new for us, so at one part, we are looking at delays, delays at site, delays from the customer, delays because we were not allowed to work at site, or with the new norms, instead of 100, maybe work at 15% capacity. So we again, had to kind of think out of the box, and we thought, we'll work in shifts. So rather than working for 8 or 9 hours, maybe have 2 or 2.5 or 3 shifts, so that there's an overlap. But at the same time, the number of people working at site in terms of man hours or man days can be managed. So eventually we have only 24 hours to work. So if we can utilize, that in 3 slots, or at least 2 for that matter, that may help us reduce some part of the problem. Obviously, I mean, there are new norms in terms of tests and sanitization, and all of these things are that they have become a part of everyone's workspace new normal. So can't really go beyond that.
Okay.
And like I said, creating backup teams, because you never know, out of 10, and there have been cases where out of 5, 2 were detected, so we had to withdraw the balance 3 also. So one may feel that, okay, the work is less, but actually, you need to kind of scale up in terms of your capacity also. Because whatever said and done, the timelines, okay, delays because of COVID, fine, but otherwise people want their workspaces to be ready.
Absolutely. I think this, the question was again clarified, that the question is pointed on the reduced scale of AV work. So minimizing spend on AV, and that you pointed out that it's not going to result in minimizing the spend, because the different kinds of scenarios need to be looked at as far as the infrastructure is concerned, or team is concerned, or even the solutions are concerned.
See, the thing is, deployment within the office spaces may reduce, but at the same time, there is some deployment happening at home, because, all of these people, if they're not coming to their workplace, their homes are being transferred, converted into workspaces. So like someone mentioned about bandwidth, that bandwidth challenge at home, having some kind of basic setup, good acoustics, good lighting, all of that is being recreated. And as I feel, it's temporary. To answer the question, it is temporary. Yes, we may see some lesser deployments, but that is for the workspace. People are still working from homes. I see, work from homes setups being extended till March of 21, till June of 21. So which means there is that need for collaboration, and instead of office, people are connecting from their homes. So in terms of deployment of licenses, setting up some basic setup, like, if we are on a call today, we are connected from laptops. But if you get into some kind of data sharing, the quality of calls cannot be compromised, irrespective of whether you're in a coffee joint or at your home or the office space. So temporary, yes, maybe next 2 quarters, the deployments may get delayed, if I can say so, but it may happen eventually.
Okay, one question I have, will there be a shift of focus in AV industry altogether? I mean, apart from AV, will the industry focus on need to shift to IT or related markets? Bharath, yeah, I think you would want to answer this.
Gopal, I think, right, adoption of technologies, all right, would keep the green light on. Okay, that would be the criteria, all right. So, right, should another pandemic of COVID-19 scale happen again, right, future-proofing the businesses against pandemics. Okay, I think the footnote on the technological transformation, and more importantly, right, the policy framework around technologies that would enable a less contact society will be a positive fallout of this pandemic. Okay, I think we already are a bedrock of advanced technology at India, right? Such as deep learning, right? That Nitin has mentioned about virtual reality, machine learning, natural language processing, etc. All these technologies hold an immense potential to help us move into a less contact world that is more autonomous and resilient.
Well put. That one was. Okay, one other question that I have, as more users work from home, do we require a radically different approach for user experience, user interface. That would be required to enable equipment configurations. That's one part of the question. And then second part, are the manufacturers going to offer remote configuration services 24/7 to cater to the customer needs? Yeah, Bharath, you can answer. Yeah.
I think the remote management services, right? In its own way, right? It has started, all right. I think, right, we're going to see it more prevalent in the coming days. Okay, and there's one more interesting aspect, Gopal, right? As a service, AV as a service. Okay, I think this I see is going to be more predominant in times to come. Okay, moving out from the capex to an opex model about it, right? Now that's going to be another trend that we're going to see about it. Okay, so yes, okay, I think remote management services, okay, offered by manufacturers to the systems integrators or probably perhaps the end users, right, are going to be more dominant in times to come.
Okay, so you did mention managed services. So let me put it to Abdul. How do clients or prospective clients look at managed services as compared to having their own full-fledged installation facility for themselves? How do they look at this aspect of AV being a managed service?
Actually, as very immediate reaction to the COVID, that was the only option people were looking at, because there were social distancing norms then, that you cannot have people at site, you cannot have people in offices. So that was the immediate requirement. So whatever I have seen, in terms of technology, in terms of the modules, in terms of OPEX or service based solutions, these are one is this situation has triggered these kind of requirements. So of course, they will going forward, these will be there, but this cannot be completely we have very different social cultural environment in India, in our country. So this may as Nitin also said, hybrid kind of solution we will have both. It cannot be only one way going forward. That is what I feel.
Okay, so it's not going to be one way going forward. Uh, there's one more thing that came in my mind when we were looking at your interaction, was that when we talk about design or user experience, and a lot of questions have been put forward for user experience as well. Uh, we have, when we design, we have three important aspects to look at: the technology, which we spoke about a lot. We talk about space, which again we spoke about a lot. The third aspect, or the third leg of the tripod, which is going to be content. And a lot of it is dependent on content, especially, for example, let's say the educational sector, for example, that immediately I can look at. So I could see in the initial phases, because the same content that were used for on-site in classroom presentations were being adapted to the online present from home culture, and somehow that has taken off. But how important it is for you to tell your clients that they have to now start looking at this vast minefield, which we as AV service providers have to consider as an important aspect of the solutions that we need to look at.
You correctly said, content is being a major deciding factor, which is earlier and now also was continuously ignored before. Especially with large size of displays, LED, active LED, the sizes of displays going high, and displays are going from 4K to 8K and forward. And then the education segment, earlier people were not very worried about, they used to spend a lot on hardware and procurement of AV equipment, best kind of high-end technology they were ready to spend, but they were least thinking about the content except the few. So now it is going to be since 8K is already there in the market and people are getting the displays, the prices are going down for these kind of equipment. The backend support infrastructure, the switchers, the media players, and the streaming devices. These, and everything is now counted on user experience. People are looking at the content importantly, especially the education segment, where the teachers are now teaching from home. So those kind of thing is making very important. And like, from 8 to 10 years back, whenever we were told to design a video wall or large screen, the first question we used to ask the client was about, do they have that kind of content? Like recently our set-top boxes have now moved to 4K, and it will take more time to 8K to come. So those kind of like, content development is becoming a very important factor, deciding factor, and people are now conscious about having it. So that is what my perspective.
Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, panelists. This was a wonderful session on what we were discussing as far as the emerging trends are concerned. I felt the time is a bit shorter. Probably we needed some more time, but probably we need to conclude this session. So to conclude, I would say, again, from the perspective of what you have provided over the period of 55 minutes here today, all is not lost, yet it is a crisis. And someone has given me an indication that in Chinese language, the word crisis is composed of two characters, one representing danger and other representing opportunity. So we have heard it, and we have read about a lot about the first part. So let's focus on the second part of it, opportunity. So that's a good perspective that you are giving me. So everything happens for a reason. We feel that change is the word around this. So change is the only constant. So that's another terminology that we have been borrowed from sayings. So again, talking about the next normal in this times of unprecedented new reality, which we are witnessing, a dramatic restructuring of the economic and social order in which business and society have to be operating. So there's a number of possible futures, all dependent on how we as a society respond to it and how we face the economic aftermath of this. So we can use this crisis to rebuild, produce something better and more humane. So, and this requires leadership, and I'm sure we do have sufficient leadership in this nation, in this industry, to take this forward, whether and help everyone come out of the gloom in the best possible way. So thank you, panelists. Thank you once again. And I hope we will give more opportunities for our end users and people who are going to visit this Infocom India Go Virtual show to make best use out of all the panels and presentations that we have to offer. Thank you very much. Over to you, Soumya.
Thank you, Gopal. That concludes our webinar, and I would like to thank Gopal and the panel once again for the great session today, and the audience for joining us, of course. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar so far as much as I have, and we do look forward to meeting you again in the upcoming webinars today and up until 20th of November. You can chat with and arrange for virtual meetings with many solution providers featured on the platform. And also, it's free for all of you to use. So please do remember to explore the Go Virtual at your earliest convenient time. Thank you and have a great show.